Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Go from the Beginning. This time we'll talk type conversions. Okay then, we are looking here at a program in Go. What we're looking at here is a add function that takes two parameters, the first and the second, and they are of type integer. We can see that through this type. If we look at the main function, we can see that it's trying to print a number, but it's also doing something else that's interesting. It's talking to the OS package and the args. Now, what this means is it takes the command line argument. So a command line argument is you doing something like so and providing an argument. So you can provide any number of arguments separated by space, but all of these will be collected into this args array. So at present, this args array will contain the values 1, 2, and 3. Now, why am I talking about OS arguments in the context of type conversion? Well, here's the thing. Whatever it collects from the console at this point is going to be a string. And imagine that something being a string is going to be put into this add function. So we want to be able to invoke this add function. There will be a mismatch. So I will just show you how that would work. So instead of, let's do that. Let's also do go run, because it needs to be called go run. You can see it for yourself here. So it's outputting a 1, and it's also outputting the number. But at this point, we don't really know what type is it. I told you all it was a string, right? But I kind of need to prove my point. So let's do this again. At this point, it's saying it's a string. So any attempt from me to invoke this method with the number it captures here on number is not going to fly, right? So the compiler ahead of time is going to tell me, look, Chris, this is not going to work. Let me prove that to you by you getting an error. So it's clearly telling you that you can't use type string for something that should be an integer. But I know I typed an integer, so how do I solve it? Well, this is how you solve it. You can use a library called string conversion, or strconv. By using this library, we can use this method, which has a very cryptic name. A toy, what it stands for is Ascii string to integer. What it does is take a string, turn that into an integer, and yeah, let's kind of use that like so. And let's take away that because it's not going to work. Let's also print this. Now, quick review. It's taking that first argument, turning that into a number, taking that second argument, also turning that into a number. And now you can see that the compiler is happy with us, right? And let's try to run this even. So let's do that and that. And out comes the value 4, which is exactly what we expect, right? Because we input 1 and 3. I bet you're wondering at this point, what is this underscore thing? I see that I'm getting 2 responses back. I'm seeing I'm getting this number and this comma and then something else. Now, if we hover here for a second, we can see that we are getting an error back. The reason why that is that this is a convention within Go, and you will see that in future videos. For certain operations, an error might occur. And you're kind of wondering, okay, when can an error happen? Well, if I type Chris instead of a 2 at this point, or a 3, it will try to convert something into an integer that is clearly not an integer. So what happens? It kind of crashed silently on us, but what we can do to actually highlight the fact that we got an error is by saying, so let's assume it's the same type of input, and instead of an underscore, which means I don't care, or we can capture that and say, hey, if error not equals to nil. So we're at this point where we can instead say panic. This is a way for us to crash the program on purpose because we don't want to continue at this point because we have something, some kind of precondition. In this case, we don't get the numbers that we expect, and we just want to crash the program and saying, here's the reason. So panic is something that we can invoke. We can give it the error object so we have a chance to investigate what the problem was. Now, trying to run our program again, we see now that the program crashes and it's saying, hey, I'm trying to use this a toy method. I'm trying to parse Chris. It's invalid, and that makes me crash. So this is a way for you to add some kind of error control to your code. In fact, we can just add error up here. So regardless of whether it's the first argument or the second argument, it will crash out. We can see that we still have this crash because of Chris. We try to fix, so our only choice here is to provide 2 correct integers and everybody's happy. So that's a way that you can work with values to convert them from a string that comes from console input from the user, for example, but you might want to go the other route too. So what do? Let's say that you actually have this string. Well, there is a backwards method, if you will, that's called integer to Ascii or itoa, and you can just input now the sum here, which is an integer, and you can do it the other way around. We don't see that as much, of course, at this point, but string sum here, if we just hover over our code, we can see that we successfully converted this into a string. What's good about the string conversion library is that it contains a lot of different cases for all types of, all types that you can imagine. So like booleans and things like that. So every single basic type that you want to convert between, string conversion library is your friend. So this is how you can take it in both situations. And I wanted to show you this use case with user input, just so you see a very real case of, I actually need to do the conversion before I can, for example, call my add method. So yeah, that's everything for this video. I hope this was useful. Remember to use string convert to do what you need to do.